Welcome to All In, a straight-shooting, science-based podcast about periods, fertility, and nurturing health outside of unrealistic beauty expectations. We will mostly, but not exclusively, focus on hypothalamic amenorrhea, HA, a component of the female athlete triad, and relative energy deficiency in sport.
I'm Dr. Nicola Rinaldi, scientist and lead author of the book No Period, Now What? I specialize in helping people understand how their eating, exercise, and lifestyle habits are keeping them from hormonal health and their best life. My work focuses on regaining periods, improving fertility, and breaking free of the rules of underlying diet culture.
My name is Florence Gillet. I'm a certified eating psychology coach and the founder of BeyondBodyImage.com. I specialize in mental recovery, helping people let go of toxic health beliefs to finally feel at ease in their bodies at any size.
Every 2 weeks, the All In podcast brings you real recovery stories, expert insights, and new scientific research on HA, hormonal health, and fertility, with an unmissable touch of body respect and women's empowerment.
Just a reminder that this podcast represents the opinions of the hosts and their guests. The content here should not be taken as medical advice. It is for informational purposes only. And because each person is so unique, please consult your healthcare professional for any medical questions. Music by the Andy Shulman Band, available on Spotify. Hello, Nicola. We are back. How are you?
Good. How are you?
Very good. Thank you. Today, we are talking about a subject that I know many of us will be confronted with. It's the whole New Year, New You, which we want to make it New Year, same you.
And let's celebrate that.
Yes, exactly. We want to celebrate the bodies and appearance and weight and whatever we have already or whatever we're working on to recover our periods. And I think Nicola and I still have memories of these difficult times in the beginning of the year where everybody jumps on the bandwagon of dieting and getting a gym membership and moving more and eating none of that. And my body is a temple. But the reality is it is quite a triggering time, right? So we wanted to use some of our knowledge and experiences to help you out navigating that difficult time.
Absolutely. So Florence, can you remind us a little bit about your journey and how it led you to becoming a body image consultant and really focusing on sort of tearing down some of the body image myths that we have?
Yes. It was a long journey. I won't lie. So as I said before in the first episode where we talk about our stories, I had recovered from HA without doing any of the body image work. And so I had physically recovered, but obviously I was still very much imprisoned by my own fears of gaining weight, of seeing my body change or, aging or all of these different concepts. And the reality is I started this work a lot later. So I had recovered from HA in 2010, and I only started this work on my mental health because body image, I'm going to maybe go a little bit backward. Body image is an inside job. It has nothing to do about what your body looks like. It's actually what's going on in your head. So it's all the perception and the thoughts and the feelings and the emotions you have towards your own body and appearance. And the reality is body image is super important because we know it is the number one factor for self-esteem and self-confidence. Yet, a lot of people don't know that it is about their mental health rather than how they look. And a lot of people will say, if I don't feel good in that body, I'll just change it and then it will feel better. But the reality
It
is you
often
can't.
doesn't, though, right?
No, it doesn't at all. And it's quite interesting because if you see a lot of those personal trainers and, people selling all these products for people to have a body that's different, whatever shape or size or whatever, they use that a lot, right? They say like, feel more confident because you're going to be toned and this and that. And the reality is it's a lie because one, we know that changing our bodies doesn't work long term. It only works short term, and then our bodies fight that back.
Yep.
And two, you can totally change your body and not change at all the way you see it. So that happens a lot, for example, with people that would have bariatric surgery, right? They have lost tons of weight and their body is really, really different. But the reality is they still feel like they live in a larger body and they still interpret the world with the discrimination they might have experienced in the past. So in the same way, you would have models that look exactly like the beauty standards we keep promoting everywhere, which is unattainable, that feel horrible about the way they
Yeah.
look, right?
Yeah.
So going back to my own story, I started working with a therapist. And at the time, I didn't know I had an issue still with food and body and exercising and all of that. I started working with a therapist because I was crazy anxious. And from there, I started slowly deconstructing some of the issues that I had. And after that, I actually worked with a body image coach, someone who was doing exactly what I do today. And then I worked with Chris Sandel, which if you don't know Chris, you should check out Real Health Radio, which is his podcast. He's a great dietitian, but he's, I think, much more than that. And he definitely taught me a lot of the practices of self-care and accepting my body really fully was thanks to him. Then I worked on mindfulness and self-compassion. Like it's a really long journey, and it happened throughout, long years. I didn't kind of add all of these different practitioners and different ways to work on myself in one go. But the reality is, throughout all of this, I kind of found that we never talk about these issues. We keep talking about food, we keep talking about exercise, we keep talking about the way we look,
Yeah.
but we
So
don't
much about the way we
actually,
look.
yeah. And then we never actually make the connection with what's happening in our lives, how much anxiety we might feel, how much trauma we have gone through. I've also done CBT, by the way. God, I spent a lot of money on this personal development, but it was really money that was so well worth spent. And so, for example, for me, there was an element of perfectionism that was definitely driving me to disordered eating that was actually rooted in childhood trauma. Because I grew up in a troubled household. My dad was suffering from alcoholism and was bipolar. And so I went through a lot of different things. And then I also went through sexual abuse at some point. And so
that's a lot.
all of these things, they were literally like put under a carpet and never looked at. And so when I was 35, like I think the anxiety caught back with me. And I realized that I couldn't live my life like this anymore. My couple was in danger. I was mean to my children. I felt like my job was not going well. And so I think wherever you start, I would say start, like find what seems right to you at some point to get that work done. But for me, as a kind of body image coach, that's a lot of what we work on. We don't just work on the food and the exercise, definitely not. This is where we start because you need to be well nourished to do this work mentally. But it really quickly goes on to how we treat ourselves, what kind of internal dialogue we have with ourselves. I was crazy hard on myself, and this is the case for many
so common.
Of the people I see who are struggling with missing periods. There's an element of character that goes into disordered eating and eating disorders. We're very A-type. We
Mm-hmm.
like our stuff very
Mm-hmm.
controlled.
Yep.
So I think some of it is about letting go, is dealing with the beliefs we have, the fears, if I gain weight, nobody's going to like me, I'm not going to belong, I'm not going to fit in. All of these things play a role.
Mm-hmm.
So sorry, that was a very long answer.
No, that was great. I think that's a lovely summary of why it's so important not to just work on the physical aspects of period recovery, but also to work on your mindset and digging into why you believe so many of the things that you do about yourself, about your food, about your exercise. I think that that's really important work to do. So I think thank you for sharing all that. Um,
It's okay.
so, so we're like, as you said, we're coming up on the new year and there are often so many resolutions that are about changing bodies. For me, it was about getting a six pack or whatever, people sort of starting gym memberships. So, how have your feelings about New Year's resolutions changed over time from sort of when you were in that diet culture mindset to when you were doing some of that work to now?
Yeah, totally, totally. I think one element also for me of recovery and doing all that work, and this is something I see in my clients and that we work together on, is to disconnect from those external messages.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so I think as A-type and perfectionists and having the need to feel safe and to feel valued in whatever we do and recognized in a way, it kind of pushes us to always answer the calls, right? So whether it is about join this gym and change your life and become happy because you've, changed the way you look, or whether it is, your mom saying you should do this or you should do that. Like we tend to just respond because we tend to be people pleasers.
Mm-hmm.
And the reality is there's really a big part of the job of body image that is about disconnecting from those encouragements to do
Mm-hmm.
things that maybe you wouldn't choose to do,
Mm-hmm.
but that you do because you think you will belong and fit in and be recognized for all the things you are told you should do. So it's kind of moving from a should to what do I really want? What do
Mm-hmm.
I really need? And for me, like a lot of the resolutions now, then they're definitely not about physical activity or appearance. They're much more so about how I feel mentally.
Mm-hmm.
Because as I said, I mean, when you come from a difficult background, definitely mental health is always something I have to manage and it will be for the rest of my life.
Mm-hmm.
But it's also about sometimes more self-care. And I think maybe some people will listen to us and say, but for me, self-care is actually exercising.
Mm-hmm.
I take care of myself when I decide that I'm going to look a certain way. But I think this is a fallacy. It's just, it does feel safe. I totally understand that at this moment, feeling like I'm going to try and look like the unattainable standard of beauty, it feels safer than refusing that call and just saying, no, I'm exactly right the way I look right now.
Mm-hmm.
But the reality is, how do you feel when you do these things, right? So that's what I would encourage people to do, is to kind of disconnect from those messages and really understand, look at them with a more critical way of thinking, and thinking, do I really need right now in this pandemic to go in a gym and sweat 3 hours a day? Or do I just need more rest? Do I need more social connection? Do I need to listen to music I like? Do I need to read a good book? Do I need to get a massage? I don't know, whatever it's going to be.
I need a
Um,
haircut.
do I need a haircut? So, what about you? I mean, do you kind of connect to that, or?
Absolutely. I mean, I think for many years, my New Year's resolutions were also about sort of being better at eating and being better
Oh,
at
yeah.
exercise. I was already eating relatively well, but it was about, oh, can I cut my calories? And, I'm not going to let myself have XYZ food and, all
Yeah.
of that stuff. And now, sometimes I don't make New Year's resolutions at all. It's
No, I
what's
agree.
special about the start of the year. I feel like if there's something I want to do, I don't need to wait.
You can do it
Hence
anytime.
publishing this podcast now instead of, um, and or if it's something that's kind of been on my radar screen, it's more resolutions around my personal feelings and life
Yes.
rather than changing my food or exercise or body, because those things I'm at a point now where I just eat food and I move my body because I enjoy it, and
Yeah.
I don't need to do more. I
And I think that could be a beautiful resolution, by the way, is to say, I'm going to move my body in a way that feels good to me, Now, okay, little caveat to that. Obviously, if you are in recovery and the right way for you is to do nothing, that could be your resolution as well. My resolution is that I'm going to let my body rest.
mhm.
That could totally be a resolution. I think we have this idea that resolutions are totally unattainable, or that they're like, I'm gonna be like this person. I can never sustain to remain more than 3 months. That's not the point,
Yeah.
right? But another thing that I really, really like is a little phrase that was coined by Christy Harrison, and she uses self-care, not self-control.
Mhm.
And I really like that too, because for me, as you said, like a lot of the resolutions were like, okay, how am I going to control more?
Yes.
What do I eat? How
How
do
can
I
I be more
move?
perfect?
Yes. How can I improve? Always improvement.
Yes. Yeah.
But the reality is maybe I improve. Maybe I just stay where I am. It's no big deal. But how do I actually take care of myself
Mhm.
properly?
Yeah.
So yeah.
Um, so, do you have any other guidance for people who are struggling with body image, in particular, on resolutions that they might consider? We've
Yes,
talked about a
totally.
number of them anyway, but
Yes.
if you have anything more to
Yeah.
add, that would be great.
So something that I find really, really important in that zone, in that period of time, is to clean up your social media feed if you haven't
Hmm.
done so yet. We know that constantly seeing that 1% of bodies that are totally unattainable all the time as the norm. So if your feed is full of young, thin bodybuilders, um, please know that this is not humanity and that bodies are diverse and there are many different ways to be healthy. In fact, there is a good chance that the bodybuilder you see on your feed has HA as well. Side note.
Yeah,
So
I think that's so important. Sort of
yeah,
getting rid of the idea that healthy is about the way you look, as opposed to the way you
yeah,
feel and the way your body is performing
totally.
and behaving.
And health is so much more than what we eat and how we exercise.
Hmm.
This is something I keep like repeating. Everyone inviting me, they will get it.
Yes.
We know that health is about 1/3 of it is in our hands, that we can really influence. And I'm not saying influencing as, you have to do strenuous exercise all the time. That's another misconception. You can be healthy by just moving your body gently throughout the day. And I know my grandparents never went to a gym,
Hmm.
but they were taking care of a vegetable garden. And so that used to take them outdoors and, having to bend and, take care of all these vegetables. And then they used to walk or maybe cycle to work. That
Hmm.
was enough, right? So Uh, but yeah, so seeing always that 1% of bodies and believing this is what everybody should look like is really problematic. So I would highly, highly encourage you to clean up your social media feed, especially in the new year when all these messages are going to come straight to you,
Mm-hmm.
especially in the pandemic where people are going to say, you haven't moved all this time. Now is the time to kind of get onto a new routine. That's going to be really, really hard. Um, it doesn't have to be painful to be to be positive for you,
Mm-hmm.
and this works well with HA recovery as well, because we tell women it's not that we tell them you can never move.
Right.
We tell them just move in a non-intense way, so go for
Yep.
a nice walk, do some gentle yoga, maybe some stretching. This is just good enough. This is movement, right?
Yes.
And I think it's the fitness industry that changed this view of movement has to be like you have to have your heart rate up and you have to sweat profusely. And so changing your social media feed and populating it with bodies that don't look like this unrealistic standard.
Mm-hmm.
So really, and I have a ton of resources on my website. So beyondbodyimage.com/resources. You will find tons of different people of different sizes, of different ethnic backgrounds, some of them with different gender identities. Just really, populate your feed in that way, and get rid of the stuff that when you look on your social media feed makes you less than, makes you feel
Mm-hmm.
like you're less than. Just get rid of it. Don't need it.
Yep.
um, and I would say these same boundaries you can put to your friends and families also if they are triggering, because we know that the two main causes of kind of difficult comments when it comes to bodies are doctors and families. So if you come from a dieting family or friends that are, on that bandwagon saying, I'm going to start this and this new routine, and no, it's not a diet, it's a lifestyle. You can set boundaries with them. You can say, look, I'm going through my own health journey here, and I would greatly appreciate if we don't speak about food or bodies.
Mm-hmm.
And if we have other topics of conversation, this is going to be hard. They're probably not going to respect it the first time, but you can try and set that boundary. And I think this is a great exercise for people pleasers, to also
Yes.
set boundaries and say
Yes.
no, and
Absolutely.
say this doesn't suit me. I'm too tired. I need to rest. I won't come with you. I love you very much, but this is not okay for me. All of these things. So yeah,
Yeah.
that
I
would
think
be.
it can also maybe be helpful to be a little bit more open with people about what you're going through. I think that's one
Mm-hmm.
of the things that people often comment in our support group is that they're blown away by the support that they get when they do
Yes.
open up and share that they're missing their period and they're working on eating more and exercising less. So I think we often
Totally.
have we're often afraid to talk about it, but when we
Yes.
do, then the response is actually usually way more positive than we expect. So I think that that's another approach to take.
I love this. Absolutely. I think it feels really scary to kind of
Mhm.
open up and be vulnerable. And obviously, periods is always a subject that can be a little bit icky for some people. I don't really know why, to be honest,
Mhm.
but I kind of, it's just a cultural thing. But the reality is, yes, so many people just open up and then realize, wow, I didn't think my mom, my friend, my dad would react this way. They really
Yeah,
care about me. And I think it's important to know that people care no matter what you look like.
yeah,
They do not care that you gain, lose, if they show actually concern. The thing is, they show the concern because they want to protect you.
yeah,
It's a protection mechanism. They think, oh, if she fits into this, then she's not going to be bullied. She's not going to be, she or he, by the way, they,
yes.
uh, still trying. So I really like that. I've seen no one that opened up and was actually rejected.
Mhm.
No one in any of my clients. Everybody was, as you said, blown away and really touched. And it was a support as well through recovery to be
Yeah.
able to open up to someone saying it's so hard right now. And I
Yeah.
just need to kind of be with someone who knows what I'm going through. So yeah,
Yeah. I do.
vulnerability.
Yes, I do think that there are times when people do open up and, the person they're speaking with doesn't necessarily understand HA or recovery,
Yes.
and so, is still very much in the diet culture mindset, and, I do
Hmm.
think that if that happens to someone who's listening, know that it's not about you, it's about them and their misunderstanding of our bodies and misunderstanding of, basically still being falling prey to the diet culture mindset and not having done the research and study to really understand how detrimental that can be. So I think that's also key is if you don't get a response that is supportive, know that it's not
Hmm.
about you and it's not something that you're doing wrong. It's about the other person who you're speaking with.
And it's about fat phobia, which
Mhm.
is a cultural thing. it's
Totally.
not it's not us. It's just we all swim in it.
Mhm.
And we know that it's happening inside of us, and that fear of gaining weight. But it also in people in larger bodies feel hate towards their own bodies because of that fat phobia. But it happens in between us because we will make comments every time
Mhm.
someone gains weight, loses weight, and it's totally socially accepted, which it shouldn't be really. And then it's on a much wider level, on a societal level, where chairs in the doctor's office have arms, and so people living in larger bodies can't fit in them. Where you can't get the right blood pressure cuff for your
Mm.
size, where you have to pay for 2 seats on a plane because the planes are actually made too small, basically. So it's very real. And what I love is that I can see now in the eating disorder world that there's more and more discussions about weight stigma. And
Mhm.
so weight discrimination, right? Weight stigma is a discrimination that happens for people based on their weight. And more, like for public health policies as well, there is discussion about public health representatives have to be mindful of weight stigma. They cannot just edict rules that we know are damageable to people in larger
Mhm.
bodies. And so when we recommend dieting, when we recommend exercising to not for joy or for well-being, but actually to get to a certain body, we know that it's actually participating in that weight stigma. So I agree with you. It's really not about the person. And I think some of the times when you meet someone in your family who's really against what you're doing or really scared that you're going to gain weight, what's going to happen, is to really work on having those discussions with them
Mhm.
and really deconstruct some of the beliefs, some of the knowledge
Mm.
that's out there, and making them understand, getting, sharing the book with them.
Yeah.
The book has a great section for partners and family members that support you, and really making them understand that gaining weight in recovery is not actually against your health.
Yes.
It's what you need to do to regain health, and everybody's different. So for some people, health might look different than others. So yeah, that's a good point.
I
Absolutely.
I also really like that you said talking with them and having a conversation, because I know for me, one of the ways that I deal with adverse conversations is I just shut down and I walk away,
Mm.
and I internalize everything, and so I think that reminder is helpful for me too, really to keep talking about it and don't just shut down and turn off and numb yourself. Um,
Yeah. I think
yeah.
it's also understanding, oh, I can see you're really concerned about me and
Yeah.
my body size. What is really going on here?
Mhm.
What is it that you're afraid of, and what it is that you're concerned about? And let's chat about that, because for a lot of people, it's, again, it's not that they just love you, right?
Yeah.
But they are taught to show that love in a very specific way that we know is actually not working long term.
Yeah.
And as you know, I work with parents also that try to be more body positive. And for a lot of those parents, like when they recommend for their child that is in a larger body to diet, it's not that they want to harm the child, not
Mm-hmm.
at all. They believe that what they're doing is the right thing to do, but they are not aware that dieting just is not efficient for gaining health, and that it can be really, really detrimental long term for the mental and social life of their children. So I think it's great that if you're able to kind of really get to the point
Yeah.
where really the concern comes from.
Yeah. And I'd also like to redirect people to your resources page. So it's beyondbodyimage.com/resources, because I think
Yes.
you have a lot of the body positive books and other
Yep.
resources that can help people understand how some of the messaging that they've gotten about the, conflating health and body size is not really accurate, and sort of deconstructing some of those messages as well can be really useful.
Absolutely. There's books, there's podcasts, there's documentaries. A lot of it is free,
Hmm.
free resources that you can access. So absolutely, there's
Yeah.
plenty of things, and it was important for me to share all of those because I don't detain the truth about
Hmm.
everything, but I can totally be a kind of point of contact with different activists and people who have done this work much longer than I did.
Yeah. That brings to mind the documentary Embrace, which I think I've watched 3 or 4 times now, and I think that, that could be a great place for people to start to, just see how detrimental the focus on being in a small body all the time can be. Are there any other, documentaries that you would recommend off the top of your head?
There's one that, I mean, I haven't seen many recently, I have to say. They're already quite old, but there's one that I really like about media literacy as well, because
Mhm.
we were talking about cleaning up your feed. It's called Misrepresentation.
Mhm.
Again, it's
Okay.
on that resources page. You can find it. I really like it because it's more geared towards women and women in the media and how they're portrayed, and I found it quite eye-opening. And
Mhm.
then, but even recently, the social dilemma that came out on Netflix, it's not directly related to body image, but you can see how easily manipulated we can be through
Mm.
these new technologies and all these algorithms that almost like take a life of their own, right? That nobody
Mhm.
controls anymore.
Yep.
But I know, like, I have to make a conscious effort not to look at my phone every 5 minutes. It's real.
Mhm. Yeah.
So there's really lots of different ways that you can do this work and get to know people. Like, you have to, there's plenty of resources. Just start somewhere. Like,
Yeah.
pick one, see what you like. I think there's also lots of nice activists, like. What is the name of this account for the runner that you follow? Was it 300 pounds in running,
Oh,
something like that?
yes. Yes.
He's
Yes.
great, right?
He was fantastic.
So these accounts also, and I will mention maybe later Reagan Chastain as well. These are people that are in larger bodies and are doing like intensive sports, right? So they're running marathons and they're doing triathlons and Ironman. And I think it's important that we see this. We are never confronted with images of these people because it's already hard for them to actually face the discrimination all the time. Like, even just finding clothes is
Yeah.
complicated, right?
Yeah.
But there are definitely resources where you can educate yourself, I would say, and open
Yes.
up your exposure to different bodies, and that diversity is super important because your eye gets used to seeing beauty and different shapes and sizes
Mhm.
and colors and whatever.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I
Yeah.
love my feed now. I
Yes.
find it's a really happy place, especially on Instagram. It's
Totally agree.
Yeah, it makes me feel good about myself and everybody around me. So,
Absolutely. That's the point. That's the point.
yeah.
So I think, slowly, slowly, you're going to be able to, what I've done also in the past is to tell some of my friends that I could not follow them anymore because they were too triggering for me. I had those friends like posting images of like, I've done this workout and,
Mhm.
this is
Mhm.
my body now, and this is my body then, blah, blah, blah. And I had to say to them, look, I'm trying to recover from this disordered eating thing that I've been stuck in. And I like you very much. You're my friend, but I'm just going to unfollow. We can still be friends in real life, but I can't follow you. It's just too triggering for me.
Mhm.
Um, Step by
What
step.
was the reaction when you said that?
It was actually great. It was a
Yeah.
great reaction. Yeah, that person totally. I think she was definitely also maybe struggling with her own
Mhm.
issues,
Mhm.
and she said, "I totally understand. Like, there's no big deal, and thank you for telling me. That because I didn't want to unfollow and for her to
Yeah.
say, oh, how come like we're not friends anymore. So I was just honest with her, and it feels really scary at first to do
Yeah,
these
absolutely.
things. But you will see, you'll be surprised at what vulnerability brings to you. It's not a
Mhm.
weakness, it's actually your superpower.
Mm. I love that. So, what about sort of friends or acquaintances where you, or if you're in a situation where you don't necessarily feel ready to have a deeper conversation, do you have any suggestions for how to kind of sidestep or reframe a conversation if somebody asks you something about your body or your exercise and, it feels uncomfortable?
Yes, of course. I think some of it will have to be kind of distraction, right?
Hmm.
It's kind of, as you said, like sidestep, like taking, there's no problem in being in some sort of party or, being close to people. And then they start a conversation about dieting or bodies or all of that. And for you to just maybe look at what other conversations are being said around you and in that group. I know that in recovery, sometimes I have to kind of, when women start talking about their appearance, I sometimes have to join the men's group when seeing what they're saying. Not that they're always better, but so you have a right to kind of step away from
Hmm.
conversations that you don't feel able to have and you don't feel able to confront, right? It takes extra work to confront that. But
Yes.
one of the ways that I like to, a little mantra that I love is called different bodies, different paths.
Hmm.
Um, and kind of keeping that in mind, but also being able to say that to people, not having to deconstruct the whole, like, I don't have my period, so I have to do this, and I know it's not very usual, and but fat phobia and all of this. This can be really difficult to explain when you're yourself in recovery. But you can set kind boundaries, and say to people, well, thank you so much for, um, if people make comments, for example, about what you eat, how much you eat, and you used to exercise, and maybe I don't see you exercise, or maybe you gain weight, is to say, well, thank you so much for your concern. But yeah, I'm taking care of my health in a way that is actually appropriate for me. And I need to do this in maybe a different way than other people. So I think it's really setting those boundaries that's going to
Hmm.
be key. It's also understanding that if you feel the strength to say a little bit more, is to say, well, my body was actually starving.
Hmm.
And so what health looks like for me is to eat more and to rest more and to move
Hmm.
less.
Hmm.
And it's, a temporary thing. And I'm going to hopefully be able to resume maybe a more regular routine into how I take care of myself. But right now, yes, what I have to do is just eat more and exercise less. And if you think about it, if somebody, I think that's also why I encourage people not to comment on bodies in
Oh,
general, whether
yeah,
it's weight
absolutely.
loss. If you think of someone who has gone through really a really difficult disease, someone who's gone through cancer and lost weight, nobody would say anything about them eating a lot more and maybe not moving and resting a lot more. They would say that's, it's lovely to see you kind of come back to life, because appetite is really life. When you lose
Mhm.
your appetite,
Mhm.
you're actually getting closer to death. So But unfortunately, there's still this positive side of losing weight that we still attach to. We still attach morality in that, and it shouldn't be. So again, like I would say, like, see how it feels for you. You could also prepare and have maybe some feedback, knowing your close family and friends, and maybe you're going to see them around New Year's or celebrations, and that you be able to say, well, I would appreciate if maybe we don't discuss too much about food and bodies in this time, and it would really support me. Or if you want to open up more.
Yeah.
So, but at the end of the day, the problem again is not us; it's the whole fat phobia that
Yeah.
we have to evolve in. And another great resource for comebacks to fat phobia is Regan Chastain,
Mm-hmm.
which I mentioned before, and I'll link to her in the show notes. Her website is danceswithfat.org. So she's this fat activist who is just really, really funny as well. And so she has a whole bunch of blog posts that are giving all sorts of answers about fat phobic comments that people can make. I think our favorite, Nicola, is the one that says, if someone asks, "Are you pregnant?" she suggests we're answering.
Not yet. The night is still young.
So, she has another one that says, like, "Don't you want to eat dinner?" And she replies, "No, I want to live in a world without fat phobia."
Yay.
So, yeah. So I think it's really also deconstructing, and I know it's not easy, but it's deconstructing some of the beliefs that people around us have about dieting. Diets do not work, people. And even just watching what you eat, it does not work. Like, we just let your body. Basically, it's about body trust.
Mm-hmm.
That's also an
Yeah.
answer you could use. You could say, I'm trying to trust my body and the sensations I get. And this is a process for me. So I would appreciate if, we don't maybe talk about this too much until I really figure out how it
Mm-hmm.
works for me.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, body trust
And
is important.
yeah, absolutely. Also, maybe having something to pivot to that's on a completely different topic. So, having a little news tidbit in mind, or something crazy that
Did
you've
you see
seen on
that?
YouTube, or
Totally.
my nephew showed me. He asked me, "Do you think, or how big a pile do you think all the people in the world would make in the Grand Canyon?" And I was like, "Oh, I think they might fill it like up to the top or something." And if you Google it, you will see it's like this teeny tiny little pile down at the bottom. I mean, like,
Okay.
yeah, totally random stuff like that might be fun to
Yeah,
share with
totally.
people.
Totally. It's that's actually I used to work in PR, right?
Hmm.
This this is a really common way of dealing with questions you don't want. Um, this is how we media train speakers, where we tell
Hmm.
them, always come back to what you want to say, right? You get a
Hmm.
difficult question, just bridge. It's called the
Yep.
bridge. Bridge to whatever you want to say. So you say, yeah, this is really interesting. But did you know that? Blah, blah, blah.
Yep.
So yeah, this is also a great idea. I love that.
Um, so,
What
is there
else?
anything else that's kind of on your mind to talk about as we think about the whole new year, new you idea?
Yes. Um, Self-compassion,
Mm.
super important. Self-compassion, the ability to be compassionate with yourself, the ability to speak to yourself like you would to a younger child,
Hmm.
um, to a niece, a nephew,
A friend.
whatever, a good friend. Yeah. And, if you do get triggered by those comments, and at the end of some sort of celebration, you come home and you feel really bad because you're like, "Oh, this body, doesn't even have periods, and now it's gaining weight, and I feel horrible, and this doesn't look like me anymore," that you're able to say to yourself, this is hard. This is a moment of suffering.
Mm-hmm.
And suffering is really part of the human condition. Everybody experiences it. And it's okay. I can speak to myself with kindness, and
Mm-hmm.
what can I do to soothe myself right now? Right. Because imagine you would be this young niece and she would come home to you and say, someone said I looked pregnant and I feel horrible, but I'm still trying so hard to regain my health and get my period back. And it's so important for all of my bone density, my heart, my brain, all of that. So I'm so conflicted. What would you say to her? You wouldn't say like, you are so disgusting. How can
No.
you look this way? What's wrong with you? You would say, oh, come on, let me give you a hug. And yeah, of course it's hard. Of course you're having a hard time, and it's going to be okay. You can, you're fine just exactly as you are.
Yes.
You just need to take care of yourself. There's great practices actually of self-compassion on self-compassion.org, which is the website of Kristen Neff. She's a researcher that researches specifically self-compassion. And she actually has a partnership with Chris Germer, who is a mindfulness coach.
Mm-hmm.
And they developed the Mindful Self-Compassion Center. So if anybody is also looking into that, they will find great resources there, like free guided meditations and free writing exercises. There's many different ways to do self-compassion. You don't have to like meditation to do it. It can be writing exercises or just kind of thinking about a certain way that we consider ourselves and that we may be too hard on ourselves. So I would say self-compassion is really, really important. And remembering all the scientific background of
Mm-hmm.
all these diets that we promote and the strenuous exercise. And we know that most people will give up on their resolution by February.
Yeah.
What is the point? What is the point? It just doesn't make sense. So, knowing that dieting typically scientifically leads to weight gain and potentially to more eating disorder
Mm-hmm.
behaviors and body dissatisfaction, it actually leads you exactly where you don't want to be.
Yep.
So I think reminding ourselves of that, maybe, writing it on a post-it and putting it somewhere on your bathroom mirror, using affirmations. I have also a blog post on that. I have like 40 body positive
Oh, lovely.
affirmations that you
Mm-hmm.
can use, saying I'm enough. My body is an instrument, not an ornament. Those types of affirmations, if it helps, you can kind of, again, like write them down and put them somewhere. You see them all the time and you remind yourself of them. And then writing gratitudes down is
Mm-hmm.
also a great practice to remember all the good things that happen to us, even when we are recovering and even
Yeah.
when it's really, really hard and we feel really in this alien body that we don't recognize. We still can write a few gratitudes about little things that happen to us.
Yeah.
Maybe we enjoyed a walk in nature, or maybe we felt loved when someone sent us a little message, or we had a delicious cup of coffee and listened to lovely music. It has to
Mm-hmm.
be like happiness is in the little things. This kind of
Ate,
happily ever after
yeah.
doesn't.
Ate a food that we hadn't tried for a long time.
Yes, absolutely. Feeling free around food, feeling less alienated
Mm-hmm.
by the routine that we used to put ourselves into, being able to be social again and not
Mm-hmm.
to count
Mm-hmm.
every calorie and think, if I ate this, then, I need to go and exercise that long to burn it. That is something to be grateful for.
Yeah,
Absolutely. Anything else
definitely.
you can think of?
Um, Not off the top of my head. No, I feel like we've covered a lot of ground today and given people some really good resources.
Yes.
So tell
So you
me,
wrote them down. So that's
I
great
did,
because
yes.
I was totally focused on talking. But yeah, there's so many great people that anyone listening to this in recovery from HA can connect to and read about and understand what they're talking about. It's all out there.
Yeah.
It's really not difficult to access. It's just that they don't have a lot of visibility because obviously diet culture spends more money
Mhm.
to make themselves visible than people that encourage body acceptance, which makes not a lot of money actually in the market. But yeah.
Um, yeah, so I think I hope that our listeners have found this episode useful. And my last question for you tonight, Florence, is: so tell us, do you have any new ways that you're going all in for this upcoming year of 2021?
2021. I have to
Yeah.
say, I feel like we waited for that year so long because 2020 was such a difficult one, right? Now, I don't think we're going to be out of the pandemic in 2021. But how am I all in? That's a good question. God, I should have prepared on this. I would say that I am letting myself be without resolutions.
Hmm.
I know we said that before. Um, I don't have to make these, crazy goals for myself that typically at the end of the year, I don't even remember what I said at every
That's a
goal.
very good point.
So I think being all in is also letting myself be in a place where I can just go on with whatever I'm doing and I don't have to put extra pressure on myself. We've had a lot of pressure
Yes.
on us in the past year. And so I think that would be my way to be all in this new year, is to kind of being, showing myself kindness and compassion again, and to say, we're just going to put one foot in front of another. And it
Hmm.
works well in recovery as well, to say like one day at a time,
Yes.
one meal at a time, one snack at a time, and showing myself this compassion. What about you?
So my all in for 2021 is kind of a whole new life.
just
So
simply, just simply put, I just change everything.
yeah. So I have decided to leave my long-term relationship with my husband and moved into a new apartment. So my kids are spending half their time with me and half their time with their father. And yeah, so everything has changed.
Yeah, it's all new, right?
We're in a new place. The kids are in the same school, but yeah, lots of new stuff. But it's feeling really amazing right now, and I'm really
Oh, that's
happy.
so nice.
And I know there are definitely challenges. Like my credit cards got stolen. I just found out that I've been a victim of identity theft. Um, so there's all of that, but at the same time, it's like being in a place where I feel that I can be myself, truly feels amazing. Really being able to follow the things that are important to me, um, and not have to live my life for somebody else. It
Priceless.
Yeah,
Priceless.
yeah.
Absolutely. I love that you're going through this with such fulfillment in a way, like this feeling of like, this is where I need to be,
Mhm.
right? And it's not easy. It's not easy, but I know deep in my heart this is what I need to do for me. I'm not doing it for anybody else.
Yeah.
And I think it's interesting that we have to, is something I feel as well for myself. We have to kind of get into our 40s to feel that way. To feel like I can do this because I need to do it for myself. And it
Yes.
doesn't concern my children. It doesn't concern my husband. It doesn't concern my parents, my friends, whatever, my house, whatever it is. It's just, I have to do it. And I think, yeah, we get so much plenitude from that. How
Mhm.
could you say plenitude, or is it a French word that I'm trying to say? Like just this feeling of like I'm just sitting in the right place
Yeah.
and I feel strong in myself. I feel powerful. I can make decisions that suit me. So yeah, awesome. Like, God, you're like, that is a pretty cool start of 2021. And I think just to finish this podcast, I want to remind everybody listening to us that if they want to reach out to us, they can obviously contact us through the social media and our websites, which are all in the show notes. But also you can email us at allin@noperiodnowwhat.com. Or you can find all the episodes of this podcast on the link noperiod.info/allin. And yeah, thank you so much, Nicola, for this, for bringing up all these interesting questions. I hope we put people on the right path to start the year feeling like they can totally tackle all of the challenges, and they can do it by taking care of themselves.
Yes, number one.
And that I'm totally inspired by what you said about your all-in right now. So I'm gonna go and think about this, how I take care of myself as well in this way. So that's fantastic. See you soon.
Yes, happy 2021. Yay.
Yeah, happy 2021, everybody. We'll see you on the other side. Bye.
All right. I hope you enjoyed this episode. Maybe take a few minutes to reflect on it and how you have been all in this past week. It always strikes me how different each person's all-in journey is. As I often say, there are many paths to HA and many paths out of it. Your journey is unique.
That is so true. And if you need more support on your journey, you should definitely start with No Period Now What, which you can get at noperiod.info/book.
And Florence and I both work with people on different aspects of period recovery and so much more. So if you'd like more personal advice and attention, you can go to noperiod.info/appointments to schedule a time to speak with me on fixing the issues underlying your missing periods and figuring out what those issues are.
And I'm at beyondbodyimage.com to work with me on the deeper emotional issues and your body image. I also run a French Instagram account, aminore_fr. And obviously you can find Nicola at NoPeriodNowWhat on Instagram. We also have joint clients, so you can access both our domains of expertise at the same time. If you enjoyed this podcast and found it helpful, please drop us a review to help more people find it.
Also, join the No Period Now What recovery support group at noperiod.info/support and let us know how All In is going for you.
All In is not just about period recovery, it's about getting your life back. See you in 2 weeks.
You were lost in fathom till you got lost again. You were lost in fathom. Now find yourself and then take all that you've learned about love and loss, pleasure and pain, and never get lost again.